Hey everybody, how's it going everyone? So my name's David Shaw and I'm going to talk to you a bit about no code and startups and stuff like that. Is everyone having a good time so far anyway? Is enjoying yourself? Really class talk so far. I was over checking the McDonald's guy earlier and also having Gareth Dunlop on the stage here today talking about UX and sort of history of the web was amazing. So we'll get stuck into it and start talking about no code. So FYI, bit of a disclaimer. Everyone in this room, everyone in the country, everyone on the island should learn to code. Everyone should learn how to program, and everyone should know how to build websites. That might sound a bit weird when I'm about to start talking about no code, but it's fundamental that you need to learn the basics of web design. That's something, like I'm quite passionate about it. Like I teach Coder Dojos to kids sometimes, and I think everyone should be encouraged to learn web design as much as possible. So what am I going to talk about? Well, first of all, I'm going to talk a bit about the web. We've also, if you were here for Gareth's talk earlier, you got a good history in that. I'm going to talk about who I am and why you should sort of listen to what I'm talking about. I'm going to talk about startup culture. I'm going to talk about what an MVP is. I'm going to talk about giving no code a go, me giving no code a go, and sort of commercial no code projects that I've been able to build this year. So first part one, the web. Hands up, who knows who this is? I honestly expected that everyone in the audience to put their hand up. So his name's Sir Tim Berners-Lee. Does everybody know who Sir Tim Berners-Lee is? So he's the dude that invented the World Wide Web. Like my ultimate idol. I definitely wouldn't be here speaking today if it wasn't for Tim. I wouldn't be a web designer if it wasn't for Tim. He was born in he designed and invented the internet and launched it in 1989. It's a really good album by Taylor Swift. It's also the year that I was born, and I just think he's really cool. So why am I talking about Tim? I'm also want to talk about this system. This is the NEXT cube, the Next cube, which is actually the system that Sir Tim Berners-Lee designed the World Wide Web on. He also launched the first web server on this NEXT system. So without this system, we wouldn't have the World Wide Web. All a website is HTML, CSS, and maybe a database connected to it. So now I'm showing you a picture of Steve Jobs. Why am I showing Steve Jobs? Steve Jobs pioneered iPhone, iPod. We wouldn't have the web today without Steve Jobs. We wouldn't have the web today without any of his technology. We also, back in 1989, Steve Jobs went on hiatus from Apple. I won't give you the whole story about Steve Jobs, but those of you who know, he went on hiatus from Apple, and he launched a new company called the NEXT. So the NEXT, Tim Berners-Lee built the web on it. Without the web, without the NEXT, without Steve Jobs, we wouldn't have the web. So that just shows you what a vital guy this is in the world. And the one thing that people don't really know about him, and some of you might know, Steve Jobs doesn't know how to code. He's not an engineer. He's not a designer. He has really good aesthetic. He's really good at telling people what to do, but he didn't know how to code. So this is a talk, and hopefully this is going to play. If I press play, this is a video from Steve Jobs at a conference. And the video is not going to work. So anyway, the video I was going to show you was Steve Jobs at an Apple conference where a sort of disgruntled developer calls out Steve and just goes, "I'd like to know what you've done for the past 7 years, because in my eyes you're not a developer, you don't really know what you're talking about." And what Steve actually says is that yes, he doesn't know what it's about, but he knows how to build a billion-dollar company. And for him, the technology doesn't really matter. What matters is that the customers see what is being built, and then they build on top of that. So this is a quote from Steve Wozniak, who was Steve Jobs' co-founder, and he just says Steve didn't know how to code. He was an engineer. He didn't do any original design, but he was technical enough to alter and change and add to the other designs. And that's really the fundamental lesson about no code, because if you want to be an entrepreneur, and you want to be a CEO, and you want to launch your own company, in 2021, you don't really need to know how to build everything. You just need to know the fundamentals. And now we're going back into who I am. So we pause there, and there's a nice blurry photograph of me coming up. and I want to talk about Invisible Building. So Invisible Building is my company. We've launched in this year only, in June this year, so about 3 months I've been officially a director of a company. We're focused on building web, and we have 2 main core aspects, which is tech for good and startups. So we want to work with tech for good projects, we want to work for startups. In the sort of corner of that there, you can see that we want to work on no-code projects. And the reason for that is because I believe that we can build stuff really, really fast with no code. A bit more about me. So these are some of the clients that I've worked with. And as you can see here, no code sometimes doesn't work very well because we've got the last image that was a bit blurry. This image we've got stuff picking up. But this is about everything is a prototype as well. So if you think about it, sometimes you can put out a prototype, something doesn't work, but now, now that there's actually an issue with the image, you're all actually looking at that now, and you can actually see who I work with and the clients that go out there, and maybe you'll check some of their products out and buy stuff later. At the left-hand side is a company called Chain Reaction Cycles. So I worked for Chain Reaction Cycles for 3.5 years, and I came in as a contractor, and I was only meant to work there for about 2 weeks, and what I was hired to do was work with the email marketing team to build email responsive templates, and I ended up staying there for 3.5 years. That's because whenever I walked in as a contractor, I just saw startup culture everywhere. There was designers all around the room. Whenever I walked in, there was 3D printers at the bottom right-hand corner. There was brand designers just building house brand products. There was the graphic designers who were focused on building social media. There was the social media design team, and then there's a team that I was in called the email team. And in my eyes, everyone was just designers, and I thought it was really cool. But the fascinating thing about CRC, and I always remember the design manager at the time telling me this on one of my first weeks there, he was like, what he said is we don't know how to design stuff really well, but what we do know is how to design stuff really fast. And that to me is sort of what startup culture is. It's moving fast and breaking things. And as you can see with the broken image, that's sort of how we do. The images are really doing my head in now, but so this company is Raise Ventures. Part of my time, I work with a company called Raise Ventures based in Belfast City Centre. For those of you who don't know Raise, they're a startup accelerator. And I'm giving them a shout out because if anyone gets inspired by today, not necessarily by my talk, but inspired by today and you want to start a company and you want to accelerate your business, talk to Jenny, talk to the back row there. You can see some of the startups who are watching the talk, and they will gladly tell you that if you want to start a company, come to Raise Ventures and accelerate your business. So this is a guy called Peter Levels in the middle, and the title says this guy is launching 12 startups in 12 months. And what Peter did was he pioneered this concept of 12 and 12. And you might have seen it recurring where people have done 12 projects in 12 months, sorry. Peter sort of made this famous, and he did it on his blog where he launched a new startup every single month. And what he sort of did and changed in the world was he sort of changed, in my eyes, the concept of what a startup is, and he very much just made it basic. He was like, a startup is a landing page, a startup is a prototype with an MVP. On top of that, I'm actually going to see if I can sort these images off, but just the images are a bit blurry. But never mind, we'll move on. So on top of Peter Levels, 12 and 12 startups, he also brought out in this culture of what's called the 24-hour startup challenge, where there was 105 startups or people just got together for a hackathon and built a startup in 24 hours. To me, a startup is just an MVP, and that's sort of what I got from this thing about Peter Levels and that whole thing around startup culture. So what is an MVP? Well, you have your problem, you have your solution, then you sort of build the problem, you build a solution, then you bring the solution to the customer, and then you ship it. Part 3, social media is an MVP. So what we have here is 3 images of Instagram accounts. So I found this really inspiring. What I want to get across here with this concept is that an MVP, it doesn't necessarily have to be a product that is a web page that you go on and buy something, you can launch an MVP just with an Instagram page. So what we have here is, let's see if these videos work. So, yeah, just trying to get the internet on, dude. Did you get the Wi-Fi on? Is there a David iPhone? You can just connect to that.
So, you definitely hotspot, yeah? There we go.
And then just refresh. Boom. So we're back in business.
Oh, they are all blurry, yeah.
If I refresh that. So what we're going to do now is go back to the start and see the beauty of no code. So if you were running a company and your product wasn't no code, you would have all these products that you couldn't do stuff and you wouldn't be able to see the quality. And if you had an issue, you would have to hire a team to go fix it. But what we've done now is there was a problem with the product, and then because it's a no code tool, we can literally go in. My slides are run on canva.com, which is a no code tool. You can actually design your presentation live. You can make changes to your product live. And now we can listen to actually Steve Jobs talking about stuff.
You're a bright and influential man.
Here it comes.
It's sad and clear that on several counts you've discussed, you don't know what you're talking about. I would like, for example, for you to express in clear terms how, say, Java, in any of its incarnations, addresses the ideas embodied in OpenDoc. And when you're finished with that, perhaps you could tell us what you personally have been doing for the last 7 years.
So that's where Steve gets told, like, by a developer.
You know, you can please some of the people some of the time.
So Steve had an issue with a developer, and the developer was just saying, you know, I don't really believe in what you're doing, and he's saying you can please some people some of the times.
One of the things I've always found is that you've got to start with the customer experience and work backwards to the technology. You can't start with the technology and try to figure out where you're going to try to sell it. And I've made this mistake probably more than anybody else in this room.
So what Steve's basically saying there is that it doesn't really matter what you're building. It's about talking to your customers and just going out and doing it. Now we can see the lovely picture of me working in Clear. We can see the clients again, and then again we can see Raise. So again, we'll fast forward Peter levels, we'll fast forward to this, we'll fast forward to back where we were whenever the prototype was broken. Instagram is an MVP. So here are 3 Instagram accounts. There are 3 women entrepreneurs based in Northern Ireland. One sells eco wipes for your faces to take off makeup. The other one sells soap. The other one sells handcrafted pies. To me, these are MVPs because what they've done is they've thought, I have a hobby, but I also want to test the market. They've launched an Instagram page. They've posted a couple of videos. They've got pre-orders and buys. They're also running fully fledged sort of apps within Instagram. You can go in, you can see their products, you can select them, you can see the front of it, the back of it, you can actually make sales. Similarly with the soap business, Roxy was able to just test the market. She was able to put up pictures of her soap. People are liking them. She can see, oh, people are liking this one. I'm going to make X amount of this for next month. I'm going to make X amount of this for next month. So what I'm just trying to get across with the idea is you can just put out prototypes really, really fast. And I haven't actually tried this pie maker yet, but it looks unbelievable. And really delicious. So it's just trying to get that concept across where no code doesn't necessarily need to be about building a product. It's more about testing stuff. So that's where Instagram is also an MVP. But they're not they're not tech companies. But think about that response from Steve Jobs earlier. They're talking to the customers and they're getting feedback straight away. So back on to web design, where we were talking about web earlier. A website is just HTML, CSS, and sometimes it's connected to a database. So back in the pandemic, I thought I would give this no-code stuff a go. I put out on my Facebook page that basically I noticed that back in March, whenever we were all going into lockdown, I was seeing feeds where like bakers and people selling stuff were adapting. Everyone was adapting. Everyone's been really, really good at adapting. We're all remote working now. Like my sister does remote working. I wouldn't have believed that a couple of years ago. We've all adapted to change really fast. And what I noticed was that there was people moving from they were selling stuff in a shop to actually doing deliveries. So what I did was I put out on my Facebook page, fill out this Google form and let me know if you know someone that's delivering. As people started filling that with data. And a couple of days later, I launched a website called Your Delivery. So this is basically a really simple example of how you can do no code. You fill a spreadsheet. So the spreadsheet was actually being filled by the community. I wasn't doing any work. The community was giving me the information what needed to go on the website. They were just filling that full of database. Now this spreadsheet was essentially going to be the database of my website. So I took the Google form data that I was getting, put it into Google Sheets, and what I used was a static site generator called Jekyll, which is a HTML and CSS tool, so you need to know a bit of web to know about it, but because I have that experience, I was able to do that, and that's where you get the term low code, so it's a mixture of no-code tools and web stuff. So this was the end product, where it was just a very simple website where you could go on, browse, see more info, and then actually go direct to the Facebook page where the customer wanted to shop. I then sort of took some inspiration from the Instagram and did a bit of market research on top of that. So I asked my own community, where do you shop? What do you do? And again, I was just getting more information on the product that I was going to build, and I was getting a market that I could test it with. So that's what I did with Your Delivery over the pandemic. I did that with Google Sheets and Jekyll. You could also do it with thousands of different third products. This is where the culture part comes in, because it's about using the tools that are already available to build something really fast. You could have done it with Typeform, which is a way of submitting data. You could have done it with Airtable, which is a really, really cool database. You can do it with Shopify if you wanted to sell direct. You could do it with like the Squarespace, WordPress, they're all no-code tools. Bubble, which is the sort of daddy of no-code tools at the moment. You can go on bubble.io and you could say, like I was actually half thinking about setting up a digital DNA Tinder for this talk. You could go on and you could buy a Tinder clone for 100 quid, and you could try and connect with people. And it's not about getting together, it's about like maybe networking or something like that, but it's possible. This is all about, so there's a guy I'm obsessed with at the moment called Naval Navikant, and he runs a website called AngelList, if you know that website. He's also an investor in a lot of stuff. But one of his quotes that he talks about is solve via iteration, then get paid via repetition. So whenever I built Your Delivery, I learned all these new tools. I learned all this stuff. I learned about testing the market. So what I've done now is try to commercialize stuff like that. So I'm doing back in those projects, it was all like sort of faffy and messy. Now I'm able to actually work on commercial stuff. So back 6 months ago, I worked on a project with the Community Foundation, who we're talking today, and they have a stand, so you should go over and chat to them if you're talking to them. It was funded by the Comic Relief, and the community I worked with was the Bernardos, Northern Ireland, and we were given a problem. So we were told there's Syrian refugees in Northern Ireland, they can't identify issues in their home, they can't speak English, they can't talk to their landlord. What do you do? So what we did was we took sort of the knowledge of no code and built a prototype really, really fast. So we used Typeform to submit data. So basically these images are like a picture of the bathroom, the picture of the toilet, the picture of a heating system, and that's a very simplistic picture of it, but you're able to actually identify issues in the home by just clicking through different pictures. And you were also able to submit evidence. So what we were able to do is have the user not speak any language, use pictures to navigate an app, and take a photograph or a video of an issue in their home. That gets sent to an Airtable, which is then uploaded to Ghost, which is a blogging platform. And we then had a pilot that we could test. So we actually built this product in no code with Bernardo's and tested it with their families live. And we had like Zoom meetings, and they were able to test this no code product live. We were able to then get the analytics back from that and sort of build on top of that. I'm really happy that that pilot was launched. It was a success. And Invisible Building are going to be working with Bernardo's on other projects soon. So the main thing that I want to go back to is just that quote by Naval: solve via iteration, then get paid via repetition. And also I'm going to be launching a product called NoCode.coach soon, which isn't about no code. It's just a product that's built with no code, and it's about productivity. And there's a simple Airtable link, which I can send you later if you're interested. It's just about, what I'm going to do is try and build a community of people that want to make stuff and be productive. So maybe if you want to lose weight, maybe if you want to drink more water, maybe if you want to learn to code, X, Y, and Z. Yeah, that's what you got to do. So that's everything for today. Thanks very much for listening. Cheers, bye.